You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Ian, look at this.
What, it's a police box. What on earth is he doing here? I mean, these things are usually on the street. I feel it. I feel it. You feel it?
Faint vibration.
It's alive.
Earth Station Who, a fun mashup exploring over 60 years of the Doctor Who universe. Hold on tight. You never know where the crew of the TARDIS is going next.
Howdy Whovians, and welcome to another episode of Earth Station Who. That's right, folks, we're back, and we're going back to the 5th Doctor era, and we are looking at Forward Doomsday. It's actually only the second story of the 5th Doctor era, and it was interesting seeing the gelling of the different companions, because this was the era of the crowded TARDIS, as we like to call it. And, you know, we had Nyssa, we had Tegan, and what was the other guy's name? What was it? Oh, Adric, yeah, that guy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, him, yeah. And so it'll be a lot of fun to talk all about it. We would definitely love to hear from you guys. Feedback at our station, who is the best way, or, leave, write it underneath, or write it, a note to us. We would definitely love to hear from you guys. And if you made it already and are watching us or listening to us, like and subscribe. It's the best way for you guys to find out when we have new material. We got a lot of stuff coming out even before the end of the year, including a live episode coming up. So, you know what? It's going to be a lot of fun to talk about, and we've got a great crew here to talk all about it. Let's welcome our guest, of course, tonight. Returning to the show, we always need a guest with an M on the show. Let's welcome Matthew Kresal back.
Hello, everyone.
Good to have you, sir. Happy holidays, early, I guess.
Yes, thank you. As we're recording, I'm about hopefully 48 hours away from being in my hotel room waiting for the start of Chicago TARDIS this year. So nice to be able to do this as a little taster ahead of time.
That's a good thing. We'll save that for the news, because I've got some questions, because you're a regular at Chicago TARDIS pretty much now.
Yes, indeed.
And so we'll talk all about that. And, of course, let's also welcome our regulars. Let's welcome, of course, Ms. Mary Ogle.
Hi, everybody. It's fantastic to be here.
And Mr. Howdy himself, Mr. Mike Gordon.
Howdy.
All right. We got a lot to jump into, a lot of Doctor Who news going on. We're literally, today is the 26th. Today is less than a month now before we get to see the Christmas special. Yay. And, I think we'll be doing our teased live episode exactly a month from today. So it should be, hopefully full of reactions and everything. And we got a new scene, at least, and we got a lot of stills from this. So what were you guys' thoughts on the Children in Need, scene that they showed?
I mean, it looks fun. I mean, it's hard to, hard to tell from
you got a T-Rex.
That little bit of a scene. Yes, there was a T-Rex.
There was a T-Rex.
It actually reminded me a lot of Land of the Lost. It had a very Land of the Lost vibe.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. Like the tree house with the dinosaurs around it and everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
They don't have, the sea stacks, I'll be okay. It'll be good. So, Mikey, what did you think?
I didn't watch it.
You didn't? Okay.
Purpose? I mean, are you trying to avoid it, or did you just not catch it?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure whether, because you guys know I don't like spoilers or anything like that, and trailers to me are just kind of a waste of time, because I'm already there. They've already got me, right? So I don't need to watch a trailer. And I wasn't clear as to whether or not this was going to be something that was going to be part of the special, or if it was something extra. So I just sort of thought I'd wait.
Like a little extra, like they did last year with the Dalek story with David.
Right. Yeah, but it wasn't as clear as that. Like, it wasn't clear that it was like a prequel or something, or something added, or if it was going to be just a scene that they were going to have as part of it, but they just were showing it early. So I sort of said, well, I'll wait. So
no, that totally makes sense, and because because I know your feelings on that. So, okay. Matthew, what did you think?
I enjoyed it. I mean, seeing a scene out of context makes it kind of difficult to judge it or kind of be excited. I mean, I learned that lesson the hard way with The Next Doctor, 14, 15 years ago now, where they put a scene, the teaser of that up and said, ooh, this looks exciting. And then the less I say about that special here, the better. But it just looked like it was going to be a lot of fun. And that's the thing about the Christmas specials is very much that, they're these kind of little fun holiday tidbits that we sort of get. And, it was a fun little scene to watch, and I'm curious to see where it fits in context in the whole thing.
No, I think it'll be very interesting to see, and I agree with that. We don't have any context for it, and, all we've, found out is we have a returning Stephen Moffat bad guy, or corporation that we know and love from Boom and other things. So we'll have them back again, and that's all we know. And that
we know it's Stephen Moffat's last, his final. No more after this. None. He's done.
Never do another one.
No,
Ever.
He's completely done. Wiping his hands clean.
If I had $1 for every time I've heard that one, I'd have $2, which would be kind of strange, which is not a whole lot, but it would be kind of strange to have $2 out of that anyways.
Touche. Good point there. But yeah.
I will say the scene did not feel very Stephen Moffat-like. I was thinking as I watched it. But, I mean, it's, it was such just a little thing taken out of context, so it's very hard to say.
Yeah,
it was fun for what it was.
It'll be very interesting to see how it fits into continuity and into context with what we saw and with this whole episode. But
it doesn't sound like I missed a lot, really.
No, you didn't, actually.
Well, no, you didn't.
Sounds like I made the right choice.
Well, I love any chance to be able to see Judy as the Doctor. So, it's just...
That's fair.
That's, and so I'm ready for Christmas, and that's coming from a Jewish person saying that. So it's pretty cool. So it's always a good thing when I could say that. But yeah, it'll be a ton of fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing where to go. Also, the other Doctor Who news that's pretty big, just this last week, they announced that the next colorization, what it's going to be, and it is actually going to be the very last black and white storyline of Doctor Who. They're doing the War Games, folks. And, which is 10 episodes of Doctor Who. And I remember when we had to review it for the podcast here, and man, that was long. And that wasn't even the first time I had watched it. And I'm actually looking forward to it. The video I've seen of it and the stills look amazing. They've done a really great job of it. It was okay with the Daleks that they put out last year, but I think this one takes it to the next level. I really like what I've seen. What do you guys think?
Do you feel like, are you saying that because you think the quality is better?
The quality,
because you like the story better?
No, well, Patrick is my favorite Doctor, so that does help. And it's my favorite crew. It's the Doctor, Zoe, and Jamie. And so
they are great.
And to see them in color is, this is just awesome. The only other time it came anywhere close to seeing the three of them together in color was the 5 Doctors.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think, and, they did a really nice restoration. It looks crisp. It looks, it's 4K. So, or Blu-ray at least, it looks higher definition than what it even originally was. So
yeah, the sample they showed us did look really good. It definitely made me excited to see it.
Yeah, I saw that, Matthew, you had some really good comments about the process and about the idea, because I think at first you were like me, were like hesitant about embracing the fact that they were colorizing and shortening these storylines, right?
Yeah, I was very kind of iffy about it.
But the Dalek stories turned you around a bit?
Oh yeah, I mean, I had pre-ordered the Blu-ray when it came out, and I'd actually been sitting here waiting to watch it, to see it with a friend of mine, and circumstances hadn't allowed it. And then when the War Games announcement happened on Saturday, it's like, you know what, my friend will forgive me. So I sat down and watched the Daleks on Sunday, and was very impressed with that, and the way that they did the colorization, the kind of the thought processes that went into it. I think in the case of the War Games, that the actual quality of footage that they have is a lot better quality than those original prints that they have to go back to for the Daleks. So I think that'll improve the picture quality, because there's some places in the Daleks where the picture quality kind of lets the colorization down rather than the other way around. Mm-hmm. And also...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the War Games being a 10-episode story, I mean, if there's... I was fortunate enough forgive me for name dropping. I got to interview Terrence Dix at one point, about before he passed away. God, that must have been, again, 14, 15 years ago. And we chatted for a bit about the War Games, and he freely admitted that it was a story that was massively over padded out, and that, you could really have gone in there and cut that thing down to 6 episodes or 4. Which sounds like that's what they're doing here. 90 minutes is about the length of a classic Who 4-parter if you take the credits out of it. So, and Malcolm Hulke novelized that thing in the late 70s down to 120, 140 pages. So it can be done. Mm-hmm. The question is, did they do it with a scalpel or did they do it with a chainsaw? And that'll be what'll be interesting to see. That, and maybe they won't have to resort to the flashback structure that they had to in the Daleks to cover. Because one of my criticisms of it I made when I saw it and posted about it on Facebook was it was very flashback heavy. And J.R. Southall, who I'm trying to remember what site he runs, kind of chimed in and said, that's there because they could cover where they made certain cuts. And it's like, well, that makes sense, but it feels like there ought to be a more elegant solution to that problem. So, but maybe that won't be something they'll have to resort to here. Though the real question is, how do you cut out 5 or 6 escapes and recapture sequences without losing some kind of, plot coherence?
Exactly, because I think they get captured in that storyline like 5 or 6 times, and it's just a lot of running back and forth between the different zones and such.
Yeah.
Sorry if you haven't seen the episode yet. It's only almost 60 years old.
It's 55 years old. Yeah.
Well, I think the reason that they're colorizing it and shortening it is because a lot of people haven't seen it.
Well, exactly.
And trying to encourage people to watch these things, because a lot of people are still that's the whole thing that I always push back on, because the fact that they feel like they have to colorize it for new audiences always makes me cringe, just because I'm like, why? I don't understand why people are so reluctant to watch something in black and white, and it just irks me. So, but I know that the big selling point of this too, besides all of that we've just mentioned, is the fact that they're adding, because as you mentioned, Mike, it's the second Doctor's last storyline, so they're adding at the end the regeneration scene where we actually see him regenerate into the third Doctor. So that's going to be kind of interesting to see them pull that off.
I'll be very curious to see that, because in the original, they had him basically go into it almost like a vortex. And, because they hadn't even hired Pertwee by this time.
Right.
And they weren't even sure Doctor Who was 100% coming back at the time. And so they were basically ending it like saying, the Doctor is out there, but who is he? Type thing. So he could be your neighbor. He could be anybody. And that was one of the cool things. But that also led into the whole season, 6B type thing. So, that the Time Lords didn't, really create the regeneration at that point. That, they actually used the Doctor and Jamie on, secret missions and such. And that's how you got the 2 Doctors. So, so it's interesting stuff with that part.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think Big Finish have given them a nice little get out clause, from what I understand, with Beyond War Games, which was the first of the second Doctor adventure set. They kind of gave them a bit of an out for how you can still have a regeneration from 2 into 3 without getting rid of season 6B. I haven't heard that yet, but my understanding is that they covered that kind of loophole, for lack of a better way of putting it, rather well. So it makes me wonder how far how far in advance they've been thinking about this. If Big Finish had, enough foresight to think, hey, maybe we should do that.
Exactly.
Well, with the whole, splitting of the bi-generation, which they say opened up the door for all these doctors to still exist. I mean, that's your answer right there.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'll be very curious to see
whatever that means.
No, exactly.
Well,
However,
that doesn't even matter because it'll mean something different next showrunners.
Exactly.
Well,
it doesn't. Yeah, it's whatever it is. So
welcome to Doctor Who canon, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
Oh God, there's so much stuff out there. There was even fan films with like another Doctor in between 2 and 3.
Yep, devious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's also that. So it'll be I'm curious just to see what they do with it. And, I'll be ordering it when it's eventually available in the States, probably sometime in 2026 or 27,
Yeah. I wonder if if they're going to use, John Pertwee's image at all. I mean, I would hope that they would go through his estate, which I don't know if that's managed by Sean or somebody or, whoever it is, but, or maybe Sean, puts on a wig, like.
Maybe you'll finally get officially as, playing his father for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
And have him
they do resemble one another.
And have him just fall out of the TARDIS,
Yeah.
And just
Or they'll
spearheads from space.
or they'll do like they almost did for An Adventure in Space and Time, and they'll just throw the wig and the costume on Mark Gatiss and wheel him in for a scene.
No.
Right.
Oh. Please, no. No. So that's the major Doctor Who news that we have. And was there anything else that we needed to cover? Oh, and since since we were talking to you guys on the 26th, happy 61st anniversary, Doctor Who.
Good.
Doctor Who Day.
Woohoo!
Exactly. So pretty cool
getting
stuff.
ready to go to this is before Chicago TARDIS, which I haven't been to in, man, it feels like it's over 10 years now.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, Matthew, how, because you live in Huntsville, and how far of a drive is it for you to get up to Chicago?
About 10 hours, give or take.
Mm-hmm. That's not terrible. And, so tell people who don't know, what is Chicago TARDIS?
So Chicago TARDIS is the second largest U.S. Doctor Who convention. It's been running in the Chicago area. This will be the 25th one. Yeah, it's been running since, doing some math in my head, 1999 in that case. I started going in 2008, missed a couple of years in the middle of that, but I've been pretty much a regular attendee since 2008. So I've heard it described as kind of galley on a smaller scale for the, Midwest or the upper Midwest. And it's, it's a friendly atmosphere. It still has that kind of a feel of being sort of a fan organized thing, but certainly I think they've become, I think, more aware of the sort of, I don't want to say commercialization of it, but they've brought in some, big names this year. There's Joe Martin and Sacha Dhawan amongst them. So, there is that to be aware of, but it does still have a lot of that sort of fan friendly, fan created atmosphere rather than being sort of one of these big corporate run events.
Mm-hmm. Now,
Nice.
That's the kind of con I love. And, because I loved going to Gallifrey and had a great time. And they cap it at about, 3,000 people or so. And so what does, how many people usually show up for this con?
I know that the 2013 one had about 1,800 people show up, and I think last year was the best attended one, I think they said, since 2015, but I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. It doesn't feel like a lot of people, even though, clearly there's a bunch of people there. Something I was aware of when they did the screening of the Star Beast, and, you spent 45 minutes in line trying to get into the main room to be able to get a seat, and you're suddenly aware of how many people are there. But it's spread out. It's a bit like Conquistadorus was for a couple of years, where it was at the Westin here, because it's held at the Westin in Lombard up there. So it's spread out across basically, the first floor of the hotel. So there's a lot of space and a lot of walking around and stuff to do and panels and everything else. So, but it's clearly it's well attended, but you don't get the sense that it's, people are being crushed in.
Gotcha. And who are the big guests this year?
So Joe Martin, the Fugitive Doctor, is going to be there. Sasha Dewan, the Master. Sylvester McCoy's going to be there. Paul McGann. Sophie Aldred's going to be there. There's going to be some members of the Big Finish crowd as well. Jason Halery, who runs the company, obviously. Daisy Ashford and Sadie Miller, who are the daughters, respectively, of Caroline John and Elizabeth Sladen, now playing their characters now at Big Finish, are going to be there. And in a almost as surreal moment as being on a panel with Carol Ann Ford last year, I will be on a panel with them on Saturday talking about the Third Doctor audios. So
nice.
No idea how that's happened, but here we are.
That is pretty darn awesome.
I think Frasier and Wendy are going to be there as well.
Yes, forgot about them.
Our fellow station ESO network host Nathan Laws, who does the 42 cast, is going to be there, and he said he's very excited because he's going to be doing a panel interview with Wendy and Frasier and Sophie, and he's really excited about that. And I think some other folks as well. Jan Chappell and Brian Croucher. I guess
of Blake 7.
Yeah. So I guess they do a little bit more than just Doctor Who programming.
Yeah, I think they're branching out a little bit.
Doctor Who adjacent.
Yeah, and they do panels about pop culture in general. I know I'm going to be on a Batman panel with Nathan, funnily enough, as well.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Which apparently I'm inadvertently responsible for all my Batman postings at the start of the year. So
that's pretty awesome. So that's cool. I think it's going to be a fun con, and you can find out information about it at chicagotardis.com, I think.
That's right.
And so definitely check it out. We'll have a link to it, of course, in our show notes. And by the time this episode goes live, Chicago TARDIS will be happening at that moment. So
come up and say hello if you're there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're there and listening to us, thank you, first off. And second off, go up and say hey to Matthew. Say hi to Nathan. There's going to be quite a few friends of ESO there. So definitely check it out. Be a ton of fun. So
I'd like to come back at some point. I was there I just checked. I was there in 2011, and when I was there, it was that's the first time I met Peter Davison, and he was there. It's oddly enough for this show that we're doing because all three of his companions were there as well. That was a lot of fun.
Wow.
Alex Kingston was supposed to be there, I think, that year,
but she found out you were going to be there, so she canceled.
She did. She found out that I was going to be there, and she died.
Yeah, she canceled on a couple of years, and then finally got there in 2015.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, so it's a great con, and I wish the Atlanta area or the Southeast would have a really good Doctor Who con again. And that's a hint towards you, Matthew, because, we miss Con K. It was one of our favorites.
Yeah. I miss the weekend. I don't necessarily miss all the stress that went into it before then.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. But if somebody, wants to put one together and would like for me to be involved, I would, I'd love to do it because I miss it too. It's the sort of that mid sort of Concave was great because it was in June. It was the middle of the summer. And if I needed sort of a Whovian bump, as it were, it was something that kind of got that going. It's the thing I love about doing Chicago too, is that whatever my mood is, if I wander away from the show for a little bit, as I have for a chunk of this year because I've been working on other things, it'll get me back in the mood for it. And then next thing you know, you spend 6 weeks diving into the Fifth Doctor era and get asked to be on a podcast talking about it. So,
gee, I don't know any podcast, that would. So, but yeah,
I think one of the biggest strengths of Chicago TARDIS is the fact that it's, and also one of the biggest weaknesses is the fact that it's Thanksgiving weekend every year. So,
exactly.
I mean, I know that has caused me, specifically that reason alone has caused me not to be able to go as many times as I'd like to.
Yeah, one of the joys of my parents being divorced, I suppose, is I'm able to do that. But as I like to say, kind of half joking, half serious, I get to spend Thanksgiving weekend with people I'd actually like to see.
There you go. A found family.
Found family, yes.
Exactly, and that's a great way to put it. You know, it's interesting, too, because 2 years ago, Pensacon did a huge push for Doctor Who guests. And it was the first year we went. And, you know, we got to, you know, see Paul McGann. We got to see Sylvester McCoy was there. Then we also got to see Barrowman. And it was a ton of fun. And they did all out for Doctor Who, and I think that was part of the reason they were real happy that we showed up, because we did at the con that first year, we did like 2 different Doctor Who panels just as our Station Who. So
yeah,
and everything. So, and then but it would be cool, and we will be back at Pensacon again this year. So it's always good just to go to the beach. So it's always good to do that. So let's take a quick break, and we'll be back in a moment, and we're going to be diving into For the Doomsday.
Tonight's show is a little different. Tonight's show is about a man who's not really a man. He's a doctor, but he's not really a doctor. Like Dr. Phil, but awesome. Most people in the United States of America have not heard of him. He's just like me in that regard. Who is he? He's the Doctor.
Enterprisesplaining is a podcast where we talk about Star Trek Enterprise. We are Trek experts.
You're aware that none of us have watched Enterprise before, right? We have whatever is the opposite of knowledge.
Oh, and it's not a normal rewatch podcast. Each week, only one of us watches the episode, and then we explain it to the others who haven't seen it.
That means you don't actually have to watch the episodes we're talking about, because we'll explain it all for you.
Oh yeah, we would never actually make anyone watch Enterprise.
Enterprisesplaining, the podcast where we explain Star Trek Enterprise to each other and to you.
Welcome back. Now we are going back to January 18th, 1982. We are looking at For the Doomsday. Peter Davison as the 5th Doctor, Adric, Nyssa, and Tegan, and as they'd like to call it, the crowded TARDIS. And what were your initial thoughts on this one? This is actually the first time I've actually watched this one. This was, I've read the book. I knew what was to happen, but I've seen scenes of it. I've seen pictures of it, but I hadn't actually sat down and watched this one. So I'm curious to see what your thoughts are. Let's start with Matthew. You're our guest tonight.
Oh, I had to go back and look. I got the DVD a few months after it came out, and I had never seen it before. Didn't know much about it. It was one of those stories that nobody ever really talked about. And having seen it, I understood, I think, probably by the end of episode 2, why that might be the case. It's not one I frequently have gone back to. And it was, weirdly enough, having the season 19 Blu-ray set, I think it was that and Black Orchid were the 2 stories I hadn't gone back and rewatched yet. So that probably says a lot about what my thoughts on it might be. And also the fact that I felt like I had, when y'all asked me to come on the show to talk about it, it was like, I haven't seen that one in a while and don't remember a whole lot about it. So I sat down and rewatched it and again, understood why it is that I might not remember a whole lot about it.
Okay. Mikey G, what about you?
I had to when I looked at the notes and everything, I had to double check, triple check, quadruple check, because Doomsday is a word that's used a lot in Doctor Who. Not only is there For the Doomsday, which is the one we're doing, but of course Doomsday itself, which was the finale for the 10th Doctor, second season that he did, right? And then
first season.
there's a stage play called Seven Keys to Doomsday by Terrence Dix, featuring Trevor Martin as the Doctor. I don't know. I'm not just familiar with that one, but Big Finish did a version of that as well. And Big Finish has also done stories called The Doomsday Contract with the Fourth Doctor, The Doomsday Quatrain with the Eighth Doctor, and Seventh. You're right. Seventh. Caught that. And of course the 60th anniversary multi-platform story that we all avoided, which was Doomsday. Which and that's not even counting like talking about Seeds of Doom, Hand of Doom, so I had to like double check, triple check before I actually got to watch this to make sure I had the right Doomsday. And I'm like, really? This is the one we went with? No, just kidding. I mean, I think.
Wow.
I think. Well, I mean, look, it's interesting on a couple levels, and we'll get into it. But yeah, to Matthew's point, it is fairly forgettable as a story goes. It's not a lot happens. It's not very sensational. But I think it's really, as far as our Fourth Doctor stories that we reviewed on this show, I think it's like the last one left. Maybe we have, I think, one other, maybe, but interesting to note, when I was looking at the behind the scenes stuff, that this was the first one they filmed. So this is this is Peter Davison's first foray as the Doctor. I couldn't tell, to be honest with you. I read somewhere that Matthew Waterhouse got off to a bad start with Davison because he took it upon himself to point out mistakes he felt he was making, and that's
that sounds like so much of the character.
Like I was gonna say, it really sounds like he's really he's really close to Adric in that way. Oh, yeah. But overall, it's kind of there. But not a lot happens in this. It's not very spectacular. It's not very notable. But I guess it's semi-interesting to see this group try to come together for the first time, for their first time filming.
Yeah. Okay, Mary.
Yeah. I find this is like one of those, sort of episodes. You're like, which are a lot of the Fifth Doctor episodes are just sort of like, for me, it's okay. But it's called 4 to Doomsday because there's 4 days until the aliens land on Earth and take it over and kill everybody, or at least shrink them. You would think, okay, that's an interesting premise. Let's ramp up the suspense. There's like 4 days. It's going to get really, really, really suspenseful as we go along. No. It's like this even keel throughout the whole thing. There's no sort of excitement from anybody at all. It's just all sort of happening. And so it's okay. You can watch them. There's nothing wrong with the actors. I mean, the characters are not great. I mean, Tegan's whiny. Adric is annoying. And,
Adric is Adric.
Frankly, I think Peter Davison is just kind of there. But it's just okay.
Yeah. Nyssa was the smartest one on board, it seemed like at times.
Yeah, and she actually is not in it quite as much as some of the other ones.
No.
Yeah, they again, I was reading some stuff and it said that John Nathan Turner wanted to sort of, after this story, dump Nyssa. And Peter Davison was the one that said, no.
No.
Because he...
Well, John Nathan Turner is the king of bad decisions. So.
You're not wrong.
He felt, quote, that Nyssa was, quote, the most suited to his vision of the Doctor, and he wanted Nyssa to be there for sure. And to be fair, I think in this story, if you had gotten rid of the other two, you could have told the story just as well, probably better.
And that's one of the things I love about the Big Finish is that they do a lot of the Fifth Doctor and Nyssa traveling together.
And that seems like a much better pairing than the other two, having the other two characters. And, the other two characters have moments but for the most part, they are not my favorites of companions at all. So it is difficult to watch these stories because that they are typically don't add anything positive to the experience.
No,
they drag it down.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the big part of the problem is that conceptually, the whole reason there's a crowded TARDIS to begin with is that John Nathan Turner wanted to evoke that kind of early 60s feel that you had the Doctor, you had three companions, you had Ian, Barbara, and Susan all there. Without understanding that everybody who was there had a role to play. And when you cast three people to essentially play the exact same character, as it were, you cast a bunch of Ian, Barbara, and Susan work because you have a younger woman, you have a slightly older woman, and you have an older man. When you cast three people basically just out of their teens, it doesn't really work that way. And also, I think that the writers simply, a lot of the times on TV, had no idea what to do with four main characters. They were good at doing two or three main characters, but if you threw a fourth one in there, they had no idea what to do with them. And again, going back to Big Finish and listening to a lot of the Fifth Doctor audios here recently, stories like Ghost Walker, the first set from 40, which they did a couple of years ago for Peter Davison's 40th anniversary in the role, showed that, if you bring the right writer in, people will figure out ways to use all four of them and give them something to do. The problem is that on TV, they didn't figure that out yet. And I think that's to the detriment of the stories, but also to the cast as well, who, we'll talk about, Kindo, which is the next story along the roads. Sarah Sutton basically got 2 weeks off because she's in one or two scenes in the whole thing because they didn't know how to write in another character into that story.
Exactly. And I hate to say it, and get ready, folks. Chris Chibnall found the same thing with the crowded TARDIS.
With just as much success.
Exactly. No, exactly. Yeah. And it's interesting, too, because I never liked Adric. And Adric was always the one to listen to the bad guys and, kind of a lot of times side with the bad guys. And he did it in this storyline. And it's just like, Adric, once again, you realize why you were the, sheep going to the slaughter, basically, coming up later this season. And, Nyssa was, it's almost like Adric and Nyssa were supposed to be the really smart geniuses. And, and a lot of times Nyssa was even smarter than Adric in a lot of ways, because Adric was just a mathematician where, Nyssa was a scientist.
Plus Nyssa's older. So she has a little bit more experience than he does. And he's just, he's obnoxiously, annoyingly smart, right? He thinks he knows everything, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
Whereas Nyssa, it doesn't have immature. That. Yeah. Nyssa doesn't have that conceit. Tegan is just, she's just barking all the time because all she wants to do is go home. So that gets old really fast. I did find it interesting, though, when she, finally made her way to the TARDIS in this story and tried to get it running and just sort of broke down and was frustrated. And I did think that was interesting for about 5 minutes. I didn't need 20, I didn't need 15 minutes of it, but I thought it was because I don't think I've ever seen that before. At least not displayed in that manner, where a companion just freaked out and tried to get things running, and obviously she's way over her head, and the fact that she's able to get it to move at all is pretty impressive. But it's not probably her doing. And, since then, you could sort of say that the TARDIS was the one that was just like, look, I'm just going to move.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, because I can't stand your whining any longer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wasn't she the one who landed the TARDIS in Castrovalva and landed it on its side?
Well, yeah. Well, there's a funny story about that one, which is in the info text on the DVD and the Blu-ray, which is that this is because this is Davison's second story. Castrovalva hadn't even been written yet, because Castrovalva took the place, and indeed this script in terms of production took the place of another script that was ultimately unmade. And as a result of that, they hadn't yet done the bit with her flying the TARDIS in Castrovalva when they shot this, and nobody thought through the continuity consequences when they decided to put that into Castrovalva either.
Mm-hmm.
So,
of course,
because Doctor, that's all you need to say, Matthew.
Yeah. Well,
So.
John Nathan Turner was never one to, respect his audience enough with any sort of credit of intelligence.
And it was funny, though, when I first saw the spaceship at the beginning coming across, the huge, large spaceship filling up the whole screen, I had the Red Dwarf theme going through my head the whole time.
I had Space 1999.
So, yeah, it was so early 80s special effects, and, even Peter Davison, floating in space, and, with the rope and everything, flailing his arms, and then...
Right.
Yeah.
That to me, though, that's part of the charm of it, right? Like, I remember those days, and yeah, I mean, that's kind of fun. I like that, and I actually liked the look of the alien folks who
Monarch and stuff.
Yeah, the Monarch and his crew. Like, I thought that they looked kind of cool, like makeup wise and everything.
Yeah,
makeup wise. Mary, I must say, I did not get it did not press upon me about that there was 4 days. I didn't know what the 4 stood for. I thought there was 4, since they had 4 representatives of Earth. I thought that's what they were referring to for the Doomsday.
I can believe it, because they did not capitalize on it at all.
And then, of course, there's 4 people in the TARDIS. So I was like, okay, well, maybe that's the 4 to Doomsday. Like, I kept trying to think of what the 4 is alluding to. There's 4 episodes. So I was
that's it. Doomsday when you get to the end of the 4th episode.
Yeah.
So it didn't. You're right. It didn't press upon me the urgency of this at all. But that's Monarch and his crew are just not very threatening. They're not very interesting. They're not very fun. Like, some of the ideas behind it, you figure someone like Douglas Adams could have really went to town with it, and it would have been really fun and interesting and hilarious and satirical. Robert Holmes as well. But in the hands here, it just falls flat. It's just short of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Terrence Dudley is just such an odd one out as a writer anyways, because he came up through the BBC as a producer and director. In fact, the things he's probably best remembered for these days amongst, us British TV aficionados is he was the producer of Doomwatch in the early 70s, created by Jerry Davis and Kit Pedler, who gave us the Cybermen, and drove them off the show in its final season, and also was the producer and sometime director of Survivors, Terry Nation's post-apocalyptic series, and famously drove Terry Nation, creator of the Daleks, off of his own show after the first season. So, if you wanted to drive Doctor Who, creators crazy, you put them on a show with Terrence Dudley, which makes it very strange that they decided to hand him the writer's chair, on 3 separate occasions in 2 seasons. I will say, rewatching this, that I understand now why Black Orchid and King's Demons are both 2 episodes each. Because if you give Terrence Dudley 4 episodes, he does not know what to do with them in terms of plot or pace.
That's for sure.
They went to the entertainment center a little bit too often, I think, in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem with all
of dancing.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
well, that's the problem with all of Terrence Dudley's scripts. If you think about Black Orchid, everything stops for 5 or 10 minutes in the first episode of a 2-episode story so they can play cricket. And, King's Demons was it the jousting and the lute playing as well. So I don't think, and I feel a bit unfair saying this as a writer myself, I don't think Terrence Dudley had any idea how to plot to save his life.
Fair enough. I definitely agree with you there. I
think that's a very valid thing to say.
Mm-hmm. There were some of the characters I didn't mind. I liked the character Bygone. I thought he was pretty awesome. That he represented free will and democracy, which is in major demand these days. But it was just a lot of I liked his character. I didn't care for the bad guys in this. You know, Monarch, Enlightenment, and Persuasion were boring. They were like, you know, especially
they don't do anything. They just sort of hang around.
Yeah, one of them literally just sits in a chair for almost the entire story.
Yeah. You know your villains are in trouble when the most memorable line one of them has is, "You may keep the pencil."
Yes. It was like, it was just, I know. It's funny. Judy walked in on me while I was watching, and she says, "Who are those giant frogs?" You know, and it was just like, and then she said, "Oh, it has to be halfway decent. It has the guy from the Pink Panther movies in this." So
yeah, Kato, but Kato doesn't attack anybody.
No, exactly.
So, you take Kato and you ground him. Great actor too, by the way. But yeah, he's wasted in this.
Yes.
Yeah, the late great Burt Kwok.
Yes. And
I mean, pretty much everybody's wasted in this.
Oh, very much so. But, you know, it's still better than Ghostlight, as we like to say. So it's
okay. Those are fighting words, sir. Those are fighting words.
I guess you haven't listened to our episode of that yet.
I have not. I feel like I'm probably going to regret it when I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We may not agree with you.
Yeah. It was interesting. Most of the Peter Davison era, you know, especially the early stuff, there's one or two really good ones, but overall, the stories are very unforgettable. You know, or they're just like, you know, so what? You know, I don't regret watching this by any means, you know, I like Nyssa, I like the Fifth Doctor, but that was about it.
Yeah, I think when I watch this, I think I get frustrated because I can see. I mean, we know that Peter Davison's capable of more than this. And I think Nyssa is really interesting. And I would, you know, and then the other two are just really annoying. And it just sort of, you just kind of like, man, I wish I could just have really good stories with the Doctor and Nyssa going, because Nyssa's got it's the same quality I like about Zoe, really, where she's, you know, they're not from Earth, but they're advanced. They can talk to the Doctor on some level. They're not just screaming all the time. And they're actually competent. And I appreciate that. But they don't know what to do with competent women characers.
No, in this one, they basically.
Well, even look at if you go ahead. If you're going to look at it from an activist point of view, there are four leaders of the four cultures. The woman is silenced. She never speaks at all. The Mayan woman.
Will never speak.
The Aboriginal guy is speaking the only language that the TARDIS is not translating.
Yes.
So their voices are totally silenced throughout this whole thing.
The fact that Tegan could speak it, I was impressed by Tegan. That was the other Tegan moment in this. I was like, oh, Tegan can speak it. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is until you start thinking through the logic of the fact of how much, if you think about how much the English language has shifted in the last 400 or 500 years since, you know, William Shakespeare, let alone if they picked up the Aboriginal guy 36,000 years ago, like they claimed.
Yeah, there might be slight changes.
Yeah, the laws of continental shift and whatnot ought to be into effect there to the point that nobody should be able to understand anybody. But you know what? You know, if the fact that the TARDIS can't translate it either is kind of one of those things you just kind of put a question mark over. I'm sure the discontinuity guide from back in the 90s probably has a lot to say about that.
Oh, yeah. And it's, you know, Nyssa, like you were saying, though, is one of the better characters in this. And in half the storylines, she's either hypnotized or she's knocked unconscious because her body's going to be turned into a robot.
That's good. Like I said, they were gonna and that's why she's not in the next story either, because they were gonna the plan was to get rid of her in the first storyline. So they didn't plan on having her when they wrote when they were producing these scripts, and it was only, like I said, my understanding is that it took a while before they were like, okay, well she is a part of the cast. now, so we have to include her.
Oh, wait, she's the best companion. Whoops.
I know, right? Exactly. I mean, I cannot imagine what this season and this era would have been like if there was no Nyssa. Like, that would just be like horrifying to me. Like, I mean, no offense. I mean, Peter would have. I don't know if I ever would have loved to watch these, and you know, I mean, I don't mind Peter so much, but his Doctor surprises me, and you're right. He doesn't really quite have his thing yet. Like, he doesn't know, because later on he shows elements of frustration, darkness, anger, but here he's just really kind of bland.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't know what to do with the character yet. It's probably not helping that.
And they're not giving him anything to do.
That Matthew Water is like poking him with a stick either. You're doing it wrong.
I mean,
I'm sure he loved it when Tegan clocked Adric.
I just about cheered watching that.
Yep.
That was pretty cool.
That's what everybody wanted to do.
And then them just easily taking care of Monarch by just throwing that poison at him, you know. And they weren't sure if
they clocked each other.
So it was craziness. And, you know, the ending was kind of weak, but, you know, Doctor Who.
Yeah, it is like the classic example of Doctor Who. We've spent 4 episodes and 90 minutes setting this up. We're going to wrap everything up in less than 90 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. That's very Doctor Who.
We'll just use this.
We're going to spend 15 minutes on watching the Doctor try to get to the TARDIS. Like,
right, swimming through the air.
Swimming through the air, yeah. So, not.
All I could think when I saw that scene was River Song did that so much better.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not even that the blue screen, green screen, whatever screen effects that they were using for that looks bad. It's the fact that Davison's doing that whole swimming motion in the process of it. It's like, that's not how zero gravity in outer space works.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have never known cricket balls to bounce.
Except when you need them to.
He has a special cricket ball. He has a Gallifreyan cricket ball, Mike.
It's a sonic cricket ball.
Exactly.
Well, it's also because they're in the airless vacuum, so he's just bouncing it off the ship and it's coming back because there's no air resistance and whatnot. So,
yeah, wouldn't it have been funny if he threw it and it just went thunk and flew down into?
Yeah, I was going to say, like,
yeah, I almost want to go read the novelization just to see how they handled that, because he's got to be throwing the cricket ball at an exact point, so it's going to come back on the right trajectory to get him to be able to get him back to the TARDIS. It's like, how much math is involved in that, in thinking this plan through?
He didn't. That's the thing. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
So, all right. Any final thoughts before we go ahead and wrap this one up?
I can imagine that at this time next year, if you were to say to me, we need to review For the Doomsday, I've been like, what's that story?
Wow. Okay.
I'll be like Matthew. I'll be like, I don't remember that one. I don't remember seeing For the Doomsday. I guess I'll have to watch it again because I don't remember it. I think that's why that's the rewatch factor on this, because nobody really remembers it very well, so they have to watch it because they don't think they've seen it.
No.
Well, it's not that I didn't think I didn't see it. I think it was one where I went, okay, that's the one with the frog people and the androids, and that was about all I could remember of it. And that's probably, if you ask me in a year's time, or for that matter, if you ask me this weekend in Chicago TARDIS, that's probably going to be all I'm going to remember of it, because there's not that much that's memorable here at all.
And that description of it sounds so much cooler than the actual story.
You're not wrong.
1 out of 5 TARDISes, folks. 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. Matthew, what's your rating, sir?
I'm going to give it a 2. And I think it's because it's far from the worst piece of Doctor Who I've ever seen. It's not the Armageddon factor, or Twin Dilemma by any means. On the other hand, as we were saying, there's nothing particularly memorable going on here. And the script's not particularly good. There's lots of great ideas in there. And it's like, pick any 1 or 2 of them and hand them off to another writer, and I think you'd get something that was a lot more interesting. But it's very much bog standard, middle of the road Doctor Who, which is, as we've been saying, is sadly the case with so many Fifth Doctor stories. And I am once again reminded why, if I want a Fifth Doctor story, I will usually go pull a Big Finish off the shelf rather than one of the DVDs or the Blu-rays.
Okay. Mr. Mike.
Yeah, by the way, we have 2 more Peter Davison stories that we have not reviewed on the show. So,
thanks for making us look forward to that.
Great.
What are those, if you don't mind my asking, and if you know, of course?
They are towards the end of his run. They're back-to-back, The Awakening and Frontios. Frontios?
At least one of those is good. I won't say which.
Thanks, man.
All right.
Mr. Mike.
Out of 5, I'm going to give it 1.5. I can't, I was thinking 2, that's a safe, that's pretty good. Yeah. But really, I don't see any reason that it earns that extra half. TARDIS, really. I don't, it's just, it's not great. And it's a waste of a lot of things. And it's not really that rewatchable. So I can't even say it's a good Doctor episode or watch it for this character's performance or anything like that, because there's nothing here. It's not the worst out of it, but it's
not the worst of it. That's good.
It's not the worst in the franchise, but it's there's a lot that it leaves on the table, and it's a shame. It's a waste of all the money they spent on it.
Okay. Mary.
I think I'm going to give it a 2. And I'm mostly giving it a 2 for the set design. I think the set designer did a good job creating the alien spaceship on a low budget. And so I might as well reward the one person who went out of their way to try to craft something that was worth watching. So, yeah. But I mean, that should tell people something. I'm not recommending people go watch it.
Okay. I'm going to give this one a 2.5. And the only reason I gave it an extra half is because I thought Sarah Sutton was awesome as Nyssa. And that's what, saved it for me.
That's fair.
And, I enjoyed it. Quick question for you guys. Was this the first time in Doctor Who that the Doctor and his crew had to wear helmets? Air helmets and such?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the answer.
I don't ever remember seeing that before this.
It surprised me. I'll tell you that when the Doctor first went out and put a helmet on, I was like, "What?" I was like, "That's not something that's usually that's not something I usually see him do."
Right.
So I think Matthew's putting on a helmet now.
Yes, I think he's putting on his Doctor helmet from.
So yeah, I don't, and I don't.
Because I don't know
that we see them again.
No, I don't think we do. I know we see the Doctor in spacesuits.
Sure.
In the new series, but I
several
don't.
Times, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't remember in the old series him ever, running into that. So that I found interesting. So folks, let us know, what did you guys think? If has the Doctor in any of his eras worn like a space helmet or something like this, please let us know. Feedback at earthstationwho.com. It's the best way to get in touch with us. Let's thank everybody for being here tonight. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you again for having me. Always a pleasure.
Anything you want to promote or anything you want to, talk about real quick?
Again, I'll be at Chicago TARDIS this weekend, hopefully when this comes out. So if you're at the convention, I will be on a number of panels. Feel free to come up, say hello. I'm still working on edits for my book on Orphan 55 for Obverse Books' Black Archive that will hopefully be out sometime next year if all goes according to plan. So more details when I know them. So until then, come find me at Chicago TARDIS.
Exactly. And tell him, when you see him at Chicago TARDIS, I liked For the Doomsday. What do you mean?
I'd like to meet somebody who does. That would make me feel better.
Exactly. And let's thank our regulars for being here. Mary Ogle, thank you as always.
Oh, thank you. Always fun to talk to you guys.
Anything you want to promote, your artwork and such?
You can find me at maryogle.com, on Etsy at eVision Arts, or if you're in the Tallahassee area, I have paintings in a holiday show at Lemoyne Gallery in downtown Tallahassee. Lots of great handmade art, great for Christmas gifts. Everyone should check it out.
Awesome. Yep, exactly, because you have Black Friday, you got, but you have Small Business Saturday. So definitely check stuff out like that. So definitely worth doing. And, we won't even talk about Cyber Monday. That's a whole different story. So, And Mr. Mike.
Cyberman Monday.
Exactly. Cyberman Monday, we'll call it.
Yes. Big Finish is doing a promotion thing at the moment with talking about Black Dalek Friday, Sontaran Saturday. I don't know what Sunday is going to be, but I know Monday is sure enough is going to be Cyberman Monday.
Well, totally makes sense. Mm-hmm. So if you want to get a copy of Spare Parts, wait till Monday.
That one I recommend.
Yeah,
it's a good Fifth Doctor story.
And it's the Fifth Doctor and Nissa story, so it's perfect.
Yes.
Mr. Mike Gordon, we've made it through another one, my friend.
We did, and as always, it's my pleasure.
Anything you need to shout out about or such?
Since everybody's shopping and doing stuff, and Dragon Tales is available. And still available, and on Amazon you can get the hardcover, you can get the soft cover. They make great stocking stuffers. There will be a digital copy up soon as well, and all the proceeds go to charities. So
I want to see somebody stuff the hardback into a stocking. That's all I want to see. So
hey, if you've got a big enough stocking.
Exactly.
It'll be a big stocking.
If you're like the Big Show or Andre the Giant's a perfect stocking stuffer. So, so thank you, folks. As always, you could find us up on YouTube. You could find us over anywhere fine podcasts are found. We're up there. Please like and subscribe. And as always, thank you for listening. On behalf of everyone here, happy Thanksgiving. And we hope you are with your family, with your loved ones, with your friends, whoever's special to you. Please, 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 enjoy yourself. And just know from all of us, we are thankful for you. And so on behalf of myself, Mike Faber, Matthew Kresal, Mary Ogle, and of course, the one and only Mike Gordon, thank you for listening and watching. We'll see you here next time on Earth Station Who. Peace, and we are done. See ya!
You've been listening to Earth Station Who, a pop culture podcast dedicated to all things Doctor Who, featuring talents from throughout space and time. All topics on the show are the sole opinions of the individuals and are to be used for entertainment value alone. You can subscribe to our show wherever fine podcasts are found, or check out our website, earthstationwho.com. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook or Instagram, and if you enjoyed the show, please write to us at feedback@earthstationwho.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you on the next journey of Earth Station Who.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.